Welcome back to Crime Scene 24/7. If you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story no one else will show you. A body was recovered from White Oak Bayou early this morning under the I-45 I-10 interchange in Houston. Dive teams and homicide investigators rushed in. By 10:40 a.m., they had retrieved the cadaver and transported it to the coroner's office. This marks at least the 16th body pulled from Houston's bayous so far in 2025, a shocking tally that has sent a ripple of fear through the community. City leaders and law enforcement have crisscrossed between reassurance and concern. Mayor John Whitmire and Police Chief No Diaz have both publicly stated, "There is no evidence at this time to suggest these deaths are tied by foul play." But here's the question tearing at Houston. How many of these bodies are accidents? And how many are deliberate murders hidden under the water's surface? Let's take you through the scene, the suspicions, the public outcry, and the most unsettling possibility no one wants to admit. By late afternoon, the scene around White Oak Bayou looked like something out of a crime drama. Yellow tape stretched across the muddy bank, the hum of police drones filling the humid Texas air. Detectives in rain boots combed through the reeds and driftwood, marking evidence with orange flags. The Houston Police Department's Homicide Division took over immediately, led by investigators from the Major Offenders Unit. According to early reports, the victim, a male in his 30s, showed no obvious signs of trauma, but detectives weren't convinced this was a simple drowning. CCTV from nearby overpasses was pulled within hours. A camera facing the I-45 feeder road caught something chilling, a dark pickup truck slowing near the bayou around 2:13 a.m. The driver's identity is still unknown. One detective told reporters off record, "It's the same area, same hour, same circumstances. How many coincidences can we have before it stops being coincidence?" Authorities cross-checked the timeline with previous recoveries. Victims found in eerily similar conditions, from Buffalo Bayou to Brays Bayou, all within a 15-mile stretch. But the most unsettling detail came from the medical examiner's office. Toxicology reports on previous victims revealed a recurrent sedative compound, low levels of diphenhydramine, the same found in certain over-the-counter sleep aids. Investigators aren't ready to call it a pattern, but privately some are saying it's too precise to ignore. Still, the official stance remains cautious. In a press briefing, Chief No Diaz told reporters, "There's no confirmed link between these deaths. We are treating each as an individual investigation." But even as he spoke, another search team was dispatched, this time to Green's Bayou. And by nightfall, radio chatter hinted at something dark. Another body sighted, possible male, floating face down. The question now wasn't if Houston had a serial predator, but how long he'd been hiding in plain sight. Because if the bayou has been keeping secrets, this killer might have been feeding it for years. As the number of bodies found in Houston's bayous climbed, now at least 16 confirmed this year, an undercurrent of fear spread through neighborhoods and online forums alike. The latest recovery came just under the I-45 I-10 interchange, fueling speculation that these deaths were more than accidents. In the days following, city leaders moved to quash the growing hysteria. Mayor John Whitmire and Police Chief No Diaz addressed crowds at press conferences, urging residents not to jump to conclusions. "There is no evidence that a serial killer is loose in Houston," they said. Still, social media lit up with theories. Locals posted maps superimposed with past recovery locations. True crime pages speculated on unseen patterns. Some Reddit threads claimed a body-dumping route along the bayous. Experts cautioned against drawing conclusions too soon. Dr. Krista Gehring, a criminology professor at University of Houston downtown, responded to viral claims. "Unless there's consistent trauma signature behavior, these deaths don't yet add up to a serial killer pattern." Meanwhile, medical examiner reports confirmed that in several recent cases, such as 20-year-old Jade McKissick found in Brays Bayou, there were no signs of foul play. Public frustration mounted. "How many bodies until they admit something's wrong?" one protest sign read. Others called for transparency, for cameras on waterways, for better forensic follow-ups. And in the quiet midnight hours, Detectives combed through lab reports and witness tips, muttering between themselves, "This isn't random, but we don't yet have the link." As weeks turned into months, Houston's fear deepened. By late September 2025, another body surfaced, this time in Buffalo Bayou near Allen Parkway. The victim, identified as 32-year-old Marcus Allen, showed early signs of decomposition but no gunshot wounds or blunt force trauma. The cause of death: drowning. Still, something about it felt eerily familiar to investigators. Detectives began re-examining prior recoveries, locations, times, weather conditions, even the victim's last known whereabouts. A disturbing pattern emerged. Most were young men, last seen leaving bars or nightlife spots along Washington Avenue or Midtown. Many had cell phones that went dark within the same 2-mile radius. At first, Houston police tried to calm the speculation. But internally, case files started being cross-referenced with FBI behavioral analysis reports. Some officers privately admitted that the similarities between the disappearances echoed those of the smiley face killer theories. Cases from the Midwest where intoxicated men vanished near waterways, later found drowned. Public trust continued to fracture. Families like that of Evan Perez, a 26-year-old found in Buffalo Bayou, pressed for answers. His mother tearfully asked on local TV, "How many sons do we have to lose before someone connects the dots?" Forensic teams worked overtime, running toxicology tests and checking for sedatives or unusual compounds in the victim's systems. A few cases showed traces of GHB, a substance often associated with drink spiking. Others tested clean. There was no consistent signature, no calling card, yet the coincidences were too many to ignore. Then came the footage, grainy, time-stamped, but chilling. A man in a dark hoodie seen walking behind 2 of the victims, hours before they vanished. The police didn't confirm it was the same person, but online investigators believed they were looking at the same silhouette across multiple security clips. But the most haunting connection, the narrator pauses, wasn't in the footage, it was in their phones. Cell tower data placed several of the victims' devices pinging near a single point along the Bayou Trail, always between midnight and 3 a.m. Investigators widened their search zone, bringing in K9 units and drones to map out possible dump sites. Then came the chilling find: a discarded GoPro camera lodged beneath a dock discovered by a volunteer diver. Police refused to disclose what was on it, but leaks hinted at footage showing one of the victims near the water's edge, moments before disappearing. Theories reignited. Was someone stalking these men, luring them toward the water? Or was this a tragic pattern of intoxication and bad luck? As one detective put it off record, "Coincidence doesn't show up this many times in a row, not like this." And when federal agents stepped in, what they uncovered about one of the men last seen alive changed the course of the investigation. As public anxiety reached a fever pitch, federal agents quietly entered the investigation. The FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force was assigned to work alongside Houston homicide detectives, bringing advanced forensic resources and intelligence sharing. They turned their attention to a new set of data: the Harris County Medical Examiner's records. This year alone, at least 22 bodies have been recovered from Houston's bayous, though only 6 autopsy results have been released so far. Among the recent identifications were Seth Hansen, Arnulfo Alvarado, and Michaela Miller, found in September across White Oak and Buffalo Bayous. Their causes of death still pending. On October 8, 2025, another body was pulled from White Oak Bayou under the I-45-I-10 interchange. The dive team recovered it just before 10:40 a.m., making this the 16th such recovery this year. Local officials hurried to reassure the public. Mayor John Whitmire and Police Chief Noe Diaz insisted there is no evidence to suggest these deaths are connected. But FBI agents discovered a troubling pattern buried in the case files. Several of the bodies recovered this year were found within days of each other. For example, 5 bodies during a 6-day stretch in mid-September. The victims ranged in age from their early 20s to their 60s. The medical examiner's report showed that many of the victims had no obvious signs of trauma, ruling out straightforward violence in some cases. Federal analysts compared GPS, cell tower pings, and timestamps across multiple cases. A cluster of victims' devices lit up near the same section of White Oak Bayou within hours before they were discovered. Another shared characteristic: many were last active on social media just before disappearing. Then, in one of the FBI's more sensitive database searches, agents discovered a flagged user account connected to extremist forums and cryptic death threats targeting local waterways. While investigators could not immediately link the user to any of the suspects already in custody, they believe the account may have been used to coordinate or inspire several of the cases. Internal memos revealed that some agency officials privately considered that the Houston Bayou cases may represent a serial offender with evolving methods rather than unrelated drownings. But because most bodies show minimal outward trauma, the work of proving homicide becomes complex and resource-intensive. As the public waits for answers, one fact remains hauntingly clear: the intervention of federal resources changed the trajectory of this investigation, shifting it from local tragedy to one that could span state lines. If the FBI's instincts are correct, many of these deaths were never accidental, and the person behind them may still be watching from the shadows. Tonight, as the waters of the Houston bayous flow quietly under the bridges, they carry stories the city still can't explain. 16 bodies, each pulled from the same labyrinth of canals that snake through neighborhoods, parks, and freeways. For months, officials have repeated that the deaths are not connected. But for families standing beside those waters, that answer isn't enough. Parents like Michaela Miller's mother still visit the site where her daughter's body was found. She places flowers near the waterline and asks the same question the city won't answer: how can so many people end up in the same bayou, and nobody knows why? Across Houston, trust has begun to erode. Some residents believe law enforcement is hiding something to prevent panic. Others say online speculation has made tragedy into entertainment. And in the middle stand the detectives, who admit, quietly, that they've never seen a pattern quite like this. In a statement to reporters, Houston Mayor John Whitmire urged calm. He said, "We follow the facts, not the fear." Yet even as he spoke, the FBI continued to run behavioral analyses, cross-checking similar deaths across Texas and Louisiana. If a serial offender is at work, experts warn he may be choosing victims who are vulnerable, transient, or overlooked. People whose disappearances take days to notice. Forensic pathologists reviewing recovered remains said some cases point toward foul play disguised as accidental drowning, deliberate concealment through the environment itself, a chilling possibility that keeps investigators awake at night. These waters have become a mirror for a larger question, not just about one killer, but about how far institutions can stretch before the truth begins to sink. Because in every case file, every report, there's one thread that refuses to disappear. These victims were found within miles of each other under the same bridges month after month. And as the cameras fade and the headlines slow, Houston's bayous still whisper the same thing. There's more beneath the surface. So the question remains, are these drownings a string of coincidences? Or the quiet work of a killer who understands the currents better than anyone? If you've watched this far, you already know this isn't just another mystery. It's a warning. 16 lives lost, one city holding its breath, and a question that refuses to drown. Do you believe these deaths are all tragic accidents? Or is Houston dealing with something far more deliberate? Comment your theory below, because sometimes the smallest detail can reveal the biggest truth. And if you want to follow every twist, every uncovered detail, subscribe now to Crime Scene 24/7. We post daily true crime investigations from verified sources, stories that demand answers, and voices that deserve to be heard. Because here, the truth never sleeps.